So today we're going to look at what is origin master when we're using Git. This is a question I see quite a lot from people that have been using Git for a while and now starting to get a bit curious about some of the names they see when they're doing git log and so on. So origin is the first part, which is going to break down. And all origin means is it's just an alias to like GitHub, GitLab, wherever you usually have the files. That's what we call is just origin. So it's just an alias for something longer like a URL to GitLab. So think of origin as the remote thing. Master is just the name of a branch. When you first create a project, by default, things like Git will create somewhere for you to store your files. And that is usually called master. It's sometimes called trunk or mainline or baseline in other places, but master is like the branch you get for free. It's usually the most interesting branch. But in this case, since master doesn't have anything before it, this is your local copy on your machine, which is a copy of the one on GitHub. Okay, so origin / master is GitHub's copy of a branch called master, which is the same one as you have locally. Now this is quite confusing, but we're going to do an example now and we're going to see what this really means. So I've just made an empty repository on GitHub. This is just, if you do a new one, this is what you get. It's got very little in it apart from a README. So I'm going to do the clone here for my repository. Okay, so we're going to clone down the repository here from GitHub, the one we just made. This is called my repo. Wasn't feeling very inspired at the time. And if we go into my repo, we can start asking questions about what you have. So the question to ask for what local branches do I have is just to say git branch. And you can see in this case, there's only one. It's called master. This little star is saying you're currently here, not that we've got anywhere else to go. So the next question is what branches are on GitHub? Does it have anything extra? And as to do that, we add the -r. And you can see here, it's got the origin / master we see. All the remote stuff will have origin at the start. So as well as this one we've talked about before, there's also this one here, which is origin / head, which got this little arrow pointing to origin master, which is a bit confusing. All this is there's something in Git that says when someone first takes a copy of this repository, put them here. So by default, Git's going to put you into the master branch. So it just knows where to put you. This really isn't that interesting day to day or anything because you can always just go wherever you want. So in general, I'd recommend just ignoring it. So we're going to add some commits here, and that'll help us see how commits go through and get into production. So to help me understand what's going on, I've written some little watch commands that can see what's going on in a repository and report back. So the git branch command here shows you what branches we have. If you put a -v, it'll also show you the current commit it's on. So the 831 initial commit is the only one we have. We do git log here, we can see, it's the same thing here. This is the current commit we have. But it's a bit tiring to type this over and over again, so we're going to write a watcher instead. So we've got a little watcher here, and let's call this local repository and then what we had originally. So now that, every 2 seconds, will fire off the command and see what we have. Now on the other side, we're going to do the same thing, where we're going to be looking at what is currently available remotely, but also the commit it's currently facing. So we're also going to watch that. Don't worry too much about this bit, it's just there to help the video go a bit nicer. So now you can see every 2 seconds, we've got something saying what's available locally and what's available remotely. So now we can get to work. So what we're going to do is just add a new commit. So we're going to edit the current README file that's in there. And it doesn't matter what we say, we can just add some new text in here just because we want to prove some commits. Okay, so to move on, we need to git add that commit, and then we do a commit, which will commit locally to our local repository. So now when we do this, you'll notice up here, our local repository is now said to be ahead by 1, which means GitHub still doesn't have this commit here. It's currently only available here. So now when we do a git push, what it does is it takes the commit locally, sends them over to GitHub, which then shows that GitHub is now at that most recent version, and so is the local one. So you can see here master is at different versions according to where it is. The GitHub one is at a different point from where the local one is. So for example, if we now reload GitHub, we'll see this change. But also we can edit it. Let's say someone else edited the file. And committed it straight. This now puts GitHub ahead of our local one. So that master is now ahead. Now this isn't going to fetch it all on its own because it's actually looking slightly local. But if we do a git fetch, then that now pulls in that it knows that actually this has got this commit here which R1 doesn't have, and that's why we're behind by one. So our copy of master is now behind the remote one. The way we fix that is by doing a git pull, which takes what was there and applies it to the local one. So now we are in sync. So some of the times when you see this stuff is when you do a git log. So the git log in this case is quite vanilla, there's not very much in there. But most people are used to looking at a bit more sophisticated and decorative log. And the way you start by doing this is by adding the decorate switch onto the git log command. And now you notice up here it says head master, origin master, and origin head, in sort of the same similar colors as we saw earlier. And what it's showing you is that master here is pointing at this commit, but also so is origin master, as you'd expect. So that really is what origin master is all about. Origin master is just what currently is on GitHub, and master is your local version, which can be ahead or behind by a few commits.